Greetings and salutations. Thank you for lending an ear to The Voice of the Times this Saturday, July 17, 2021. For today's editorial, a different perspective on vaccine challenges. The progress, or in some instances the lack of progress, of the Philippines' COVID-19 vaccination campaign has occupied a sizable bandwidth in the public conversation. That is entirely appropriate, of course, as vaccination is the only known approach to reducing and eventually eliminating the risk of COVID-19. It is perhaps the most important topic in the country today. As we have said in the past, comparisons between the Philippines and other countries in terms of overall pandemic response or the handling of vaccination drives are of little value if the comparisons are being made from a misplaced competitive perspective of which countries are better or worse. However, the experiences of other countries can be instructive. They can suggest best practices that might be adopted, highlight obstacles and pitfalls that we might encounter in our own efforts to end the pandemic, and in some cases, may validate approaches being taken here. Likewise, it is also important to be aware of the progress of anti-pandemic efforts elsewhere in the world, because the fight against COVID-19 is truly a global campaign. Until all countries are successful, all will be at risk, if not directly from the coronavirus itself, then from the economic and social impacts of measures that must be maintained to protect the population. In that light, an interesting story published by Interpress Service, or IPS, on Wednesday provides some insights into progress elsewhere and some different perspective on our own vaccination efforts. The story is an examination of the situation in Papua New Guinea, or PNG, the largest of the Pacific Island nations with a population of about 9 million. Like most of the other island countries, PNG had managed to almost prevent COVID-19 completely from gaining a foothold thanks to an early closure of its borders and the imposition of control measures, at least in its most populous places in and around the capital city of Port Moresby. However, that began to change in April this year with the easing of restrictions following the arrival of the first vaccines. From having a relatively low number of cases and few deaths from COVID-19, PNG now had more than 17,000 cases and 175 deaths. Vaccines have been somewhat slow to arrive, but that problem is not significantly worse in PNG than in other countries in the region. The more serious problem, it seems, is due to widespread vaccine hesitancy, which is highest in the country's rural areas that are already difficult to reach due to the rugged terrain. According to the IPS report, as of this month, only about 59,000 people in PNG had been vaccinated. Alarmingly, 77% of PNG citizens, polled in a recent online survey conducted by the national newspaper, said they did not want the vaccine, including a very high percentage of the country's health workers. PNG government officials attributed the extreme vaccine hesitancy to the fact that PNG has never before managed an adult vaccination program, which leads to skepticism among the population, and the fact that there is a deep mistrust of government as a source of information. In another recent survey, the largest group, 32%, said they trusted their local church leaders, while trust in government as a source of information was a dismal 8%. We believe there are a couple of lessons in the PNG experience for the Philippines despite the obvious differences between the two countries. First, the government should carefully consider raising the priority of rural areas in the vaccine rollout strategy, which so far has been heavily concentrated around Metro Manila and a few other population centers. Progress in these places could very well be lost if the coronavirus, especially the dangerous Delta variant, spreads throughout unvaccinated rural populations. We are already seeing possible indications of this in the recent increase in cases in the Visayas, even as case numbers seem to be slowing in Metro Manila. Second, the government should make more effective use of other channels, such as local church leaders, by which information is passed to the population to encourage vaccine acceptance. Even if Filipinos do consider their government more credible than the people of PNG do theirs, more information from other trusted sources can only help reduce lingering indecision and skepticism about vaccines. And that's the editorial for Saturday, July 17, 2021. For more news and information, get a copy of the Manila Times on print, subscribe to our digital edition, or log on to www.manilatimes.net. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and listen to The Voice of the Times.